Thank you very much. Welcome on that. And I'll take a motion to end the budget meeting, and this is budget study. This is Dr. Lilla. Second, Feinberg, all in favor. Thank you. We're in budget. This is our budget chair. And who would like to start?
I would just like to welcome everyone, and now I will turn it over to Steve.
Thank you very much. Mr. Root, if you want to just click it ahead for us, because I know it's going to be Mrs. Scriven. Again, tonight, if you have any questions or comments and you're watching at home, you can email them to communications@nccsk12.org. DJ Jacala from our communications department is here. She'll be monitoring that all night, and she'll be able to ask any questions on your behalf. As always, all things come back to the mission statement. I think everybody here now knows the mission statement pretty well, but everything we do, every decision we make is always trying to make sure that we are doing things to further our commitment to the mission and get us closer to the mission being a reality each and every day for every student, for every family, and for all the staff, teachers, and administrators who work here. So that is a big part of our process to make sure that our decisions are aligned with our mission and advancing that equitable education for all students. And as we continue to think about what will academic excellence look like as we move past the pandemic and into the next part of this century, what does equity look like, and how do we take care of our students, their social, emotional health? All three pillars have to really work together in order for us to provide the best possible education. So we continue to think about the ways that we can engage our students, that we can give them opportunities, that we can give them access so that they feel like they are coming to school to do more than just pass a test. They're coming to school to do more than just get credits to graduate. They're coming to school to find out something about themselves, to find out something about their peers, to understand the world a little bit better and how they can make a contribution and a difference in our world. And that is really, I think, at the root of education and what we try to do here in North Colony. Tonight is all about information technology. It is a very big part of our world. We all learned that during the pandemic, and we're lucky to have Julie Scriven here tonight to go through the details of our information technology plan and our purchases. So I will turn it over to Mrs. Scriven. Thank you, Julie.
Welcome, everybody. Tonight. I always feel a little awkward having our own night. I'm never sure whether it's the importance of our department and our work, or it's the historical long Virginia of my life. So, in about 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to break it up into a couple sections. Hopefully I can use my finger for this. So we'll stop at a couple spots so you can ask questions if you want. And I will try and stay at a pretty high level. For those of you who haven't been to one of our presentations, my purchases for our department go across 63 different budget codes. And we will try to go through all 63 codes tonight and be here until tomorrow morning. So we're going to stay at a pretty high level. If you have questions that are detailed questions, I'm happy to answer them, dive down, but we'll try and stay up here and go down if we need to. So we're going to do a brief department overview. We're going to talk about instructional hardware, some software, some network hardware, a little IT equipment category, security cameras, and then kind of a review of where we are on the cornerstone bond act. Okay, so just a little overview of our department for those of you who are new and don't know us. I am Julie Scriven, I'm the director. We thankfully have Keith right here, who is our network administrator, and if you have any deep dive questions on the network, we will be here to answer them. We have Tom Mean, who is our senior network and system technician. We have two network and system technicians, Amanda and Brian, two tech assistants, Ryan and Mike, and one hopefully soon cybersecurity officer. If you've ever tried to hire people in the post-COVID world, it's have a little trouble, but we will succeed. I'm very, very positive on it. We also have 8 building level computer aides, one at each school. There are frontline support handling the day-to-day emergencies that come up with the buildings. Really not good with his finger. Okay, kind of a by the numbers technology staff. You'll notice this is kind of over time since 2017, 18 was the first year we started rolling out Chromebooks. So, it's a good year to start with. So you see the Chromebooks have finally sort of leveled off. I would anticipate we'll probably stay around the 8,000 range from here on out. If you're wondering, well, why is it 8,000 when we only have less than 6,100 students? It's because we also have some staff members that use them. We have loaner parts, we have spares, and we keep our older ones around for parts, and they still are counted in that total. So that's why it hovers around 8,000. The PCs have been going up little by little as more and more employees require a PC laptop, and as we grow in a role, we tend to hire more people. So I'm hoping that levels off. Not sure where we'll go. The MacBooks and iMacs are on a very downward trend. We're actually finally got rid of our last iMacs. iPads are staying kind of constant. They're mostly used instead in art and in music. Our phones, now that our building projects are mostly over, that's kind of leveled off. If we eventually do any more projects, maybe on high school, that might bump up a little bit, but I think that's going to be pretty stationary, that number. The cameras are definitely going to go up. Right now, we have 742. We actually have more on order that we ordered last July, and we still are not here yet. So that number will rise, and I think we're going to need more, and you'll hear about that later. To fill in some spots where we just don't have enough coverage. The TVs and LED touch panels, these were replacements in classrooms and conference rooms like this one for the old projectors. We have about 600 rooms that we used to have projectors in. So if you're looking at this number, we're pretty close. We're a good 3/4 of the way there to a full replacement. I would assume in the next 2 years, depending upon what proportion we buy as TVs or the more expensive touch panels, we're going to hit that number and all the projectors. So that's kind of where we are. If you look at the bottom numbers trending upward, as you would kind of imagine. So in our world, when we talk about instructional hardware, kind of the way we like to group it is replacement cycle versus new things. So we have a big fleet of equipment, and that equipment needs to be replaced every couple of years. So like Chromebook generally needs to be replaced after 4 years, a PC maybe 5 years, if you had them before. So every item has a replacement cycle. We kind of group those things all together because there are things we don't even have to replace. And then there's the things we would like to get that are no direct replacements. So in our Chromebook replacement cycle, every year we now are to a point where we get new Chromebooks for grades 1, 5, and 9. And that means that a person entering kindergarten gets one in first grade, they have 4 years, they get a new one in 5th grade, they get a new one in 9th grade, it takes them all the way to when they graduate and they turn it back in. When I say our replacement cycle is 4 years, you might think that's kind of low for a Chromebook because Google will tell you they'll last a lot longer than that. But if we're here on Monday night for Denise's discussion about the buses, we have a similar thing with Chromebooks. If you give a student a Chromebook and we put it in and out of their backpack for 4 years and throw it on the bus, and it is really beat up in that 4 years. And in Google's world, the software might be able to run a little bit longer, but that hardware is pretty destroyed. So we do keep them around, and we'll use them in motor parts, we'll use them for parts, but after 4 years, we replace them. This year is a special year, in a not so positive way. Every 4 years, we have to replace our fleets of Chromebooks in the kindergarten classroom. Those don't stay with the students, they stay in the kindergarten classrooms, but every 4 years we need to replace them. And when we talked to the principal this year, there was everyone felt that the kindergartens would do better with touchscreens. So you're going to notice that the price for the kindergarten Chromebooks is higher because we're hoping to get them touchscreens. I'm going to also point out while we're on this slide that the general prices for Chromebooks this year are a little bit higher than last year. I am hoping it's going to be lower. So at different points, this same model of Chromebook this year has been $281, $241. 3 weeks ago, when I went to get the quotes for tonight, it was $312. So we're going to put $312, but I'm very much hoping that's not the price we're going to get. I'm also going to point out this 188 number because it's going to come back to haunt us later when we look at the differences between this year and last year. Okay, now we're to general replacement cycles. So I'm gonna try and go through line by line, it's a lot, so, but when we get to the end, in addition, I'll open it up. So we've got 240 laptops that are mostly staff, teacher laptops. We have 11 that are higher end graphics ones, especially for people who are viewing our security camera system. We have, believe it or not, 38 desktops that need to be replaced. There's still some locations where we use desktop, they may not be the kind you think of, like there's a little here, there's some in food service, we have 38 of them here that are up for replacement. We have about 40 docking stations that we'll replace. We have about 200 of utilities together, normal iPads that are being used by special ed students and in some music classrooms in different places. Combined total, the proportion of this may change. We'll see 86 TVs and 10 Sonics. That proportion might change when we actually do the review of exactly what we're buying at the end of the year, but the total won't. We've budgeted 111,000 to do projector replacements with one or the other this year. I guess I will kind of explain that during COVID, we did not buy any touch panels because the thought was in COVID, we do not want people all sharing and touching the same device. So for 2 years, we didn't buy any touch panels. And we're getting close in the elementary schools to complete saturation so that all their rooms are replaced. So I want to give them the opportunity, if they have some rooms with TVs this new year before they're full, say, I would like to replace those with some touch panels and we'll shuffle the TVs around, maybe move some of these to the place. Okay, so there are some mounts to go along with those. Then we get to some art carts in middle school. These are a little bit tricky because you're going to see part of it here and part of it in new editions. So we used to have 2 art rooms in middle school. We now have 4. We had 2 existing carts of iPads, and those were due to be replaced. So we're replacing those under the replacement cycle, which you're going to notice on the next screen. We have 2 additional carts because all 4 rooms need a cart of iPads. So those technically are additions. The art office, we're replacing a large plotter. So this is a very fine print quality. It's a giant photo printer, rolls of paper about this big that they use for final projects. And we have 2 of them. One of them has pretty much died this year, so we replace it next year. We have 2 labs in the business department that are up for renewal. One is getting all new laptops. One, they're fine with their current PCs, but they need larger monitors. So you'll see we're just getting monitors for them in 201. We have a tech center where students with test accommodations in high school go, and that is up for renewal on their laptops. There's 30 of them there. And then we have 2 labs in the tech department that are due for a refresh on their CAD desktops. So that all total is $686,000. That's pretty equivalent to years past. Okay, now we're up to the addition. So in the art office of the high school, they requested 2 Cameo cutters. These are like a physical cutter that like sticker cutter. They're not the kind of the laser ones that require venting. These are just basically a little razor blade that cuts stuff out. Also, we're getting a 17-inch photo printer, and this is also for final projects. It's for smaller works. I like to say that when they use the giant printers, they kind of have to Tetris the prints to get them all fit efficiently on the paper, and getting this smaller form factor will allow them to not have to do that and will more efficiently use our supplies. They would also like some 3D printers, both in the elementary school and the high school. And then this is the 34th iPad cart that I talked about before, and then we'll have
Otherwise.
Okay, I was on. And Apple pencils. So the iPads for art have Apple pencils, so they can actually draw on their iPads. We have 1 CAD all-in-one for one of the innovation labs. We have some iPads for the PT department for the fitness app and some other apps that they use. We have a large TV to go outside the gym lobby at the middle school. It's gonna have an announcement for BOE and I believe probably for the middle school in general. In our tech department, they have requested a rugged laptop for the room that has their big CNC machine and their auto department. I will admit, when they first came to me with this request, I was like, maybe we could just get a laptop, get the accidental damage protection on a regular laptop. Wouldn't that be okay? And then we talked about it further, and it turns out that in that room with the CNC machine, there's a ton of metal dust. And if you've ever had your iPod with your AirPods near any metal dust, that magnet, how it all attracts to it, that's what's happening with his laptop. So metal dust is getting all in the speaker, and anything that's magnetic inside is just attracting and it's a mess. So this rugged one, not only if somebody knocks it off the foot of the car, it will be okay, but it also has special filters on all the vents to prevent that metal dust from getting inside of it. At the middle school, originally in the building project, we were supposed to put a large screen with a short throw projector in the back for scenery, for play, but we ended up moving that to the front instead. So now we are trying to fulfill that original request of putting scenery on the back. We have an additional request from E&L last year. If you were here, they requested iPads with a translation app that we gave to all the nurses' offices, the main office, and the registrar's office. We're expanding that to all of our E&L classrooms and also the hall offices at the middle school. In the high school, we are getting a very large TV for announcements. It's going to go, if you guys know the high school, where the main entrance is, where the glass elevator is, going down those stairs. When you look up to where the main office used to be, there's a wall. That's where that TV will go with announcements for the day. So as kids are coming down the stairs, it'll be front and center right there. Our transportation facility has asked for a couple of TVs on rolling stands. So when they do their driver trainings, they can come out and present them. And then if you were here on Monday night and heard Brian talk about the student help desk at the middle school, this is the furniture and some monitors to go along with that. So all that totals to $109,000, which is also pretty much in line with what we usually spend every year on addition. Okay, so how replacements are a little new for me. It's actually handled by the business office. So the so I think that should call it out separately. Our copiers have usually about a 7-year replacement cycle. So these first 5 are actually about to be at their 7th year. So we're replacing them. The bottom 2 I have on there, they actually are only at 6 years. But our copier maintenance company has said they are going over 4 million copies, and they're probably not going to make it another year. So I'm not going to buy them right away, but I just want to make sure we have the money in case they go belly up and we need to buy them in here. So that's why those are on there. So total. Chromebook 737, replacement cycle 686, editions 109, copiers, grand total 1.574 million. Compared to last year, this is a little bit more. And funny enough, it's $185,000 more. Remember back a couple of slides when I talked about how that extra grade level of Chromebooks was $188,000. That's where that extra money is coming from. We really try hard to kind of even our replacement cycle across the years, but it's probably this one because we have to buy all the kindergarten cycles. So that's where the extra money is there. I'm actually going to stop here because it's a good point after that. I've been babbling for quite a while. I'll give people, if anybody has questions.
I'm open it up to the board. No question. Sandy?
I have a question on the innovation CAD all-in-one. And maybe I'm just not.
It's like a one computer.
Well, my question is about because I think there's 4 innovation spaces. Well, so I'm just trying to remember if we put piece of equipment like that in one of the innovation spaces, will all the students eventually cycle through that, or?
Yeah.
They
So
will?
there's 6 innovation spaces, and so that'll go into the clean tech space. So all the kids will have their opportunity to use that.
Okay, that's why I was wondering.
And I will interrupt and say, really what it's used for is to be kind of the hub where they're printing out of when they go to the 3D printers and some of the other devices. So it's not, it's requested to make it easier for the kids to work, that we have a whole part of laptops in there, so the kids are getting on, but they wanted to not dedicate one of those laptops to doing the print job, so they have this other device where you come and load your job and print it on the machine.
Okay, because that takes a while, right?
Yes, so that's what that is. It's not that only one, they only have one and they have a whole bunch. That's just this.
So I'd like something to serve the printing.
Yes.
Okay, and everybody has access to it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was equivalent.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Julia, on the 3D printers, how many are going in school? 2?
So 2 are going in each elementary school. Southgate already has some, so really there's only 5 of the elementary schools getting them. And then I believe there's 6 going to the high school. And the middle school already has quite a fleet of them there.
And on the laptops, do you get a certain brand or buy from one company?
We do, and it varies. Usually around April or May, the state contracts kind of go out and get decided, and there's usually one company will win for a convertible one, and lately we really like the HP one, so we hope that HP is the winner of that contract, and that means their price is super awesome on that model. We can still buy from Dell, or we can still buy either way, but sometimes that ag buy contract price ends up being just so ridiculously cheap that that's what you go with. The very first year we got the elite books, that was the case with those, and we got such an amazing deal, and we only paid under $900 on them, and we went on the street to the store to buy them. They were $1,400 for the equivalent device, so it's a significant savings. So if we can use that vehicle to buy them, we very much appreciate it. But it's kind of the luck of the draw as to who wins one we like.
Can I just ask a follow-up question on the 3D printers? I think I heard you say Southgate already has them. How come Southgate has 3D printers and the others don't?
Because at the time we did have them spread all over. One particular teacher at Southgate really wanted to use them, and the others were not feeling comfortable with them.
Not really yet. Oh,
at the
okay.
time. So they moved. I think she got one, and then somebody else had another one over there.
Oh, okay.
And we're just trying to be equitable and even it out and get everybody training so that everybody feels comfortable in their school.
Okay.
We have it in a number of buildings, but in the art room in particular, I think they originally were in the library.
Yeah.
And then they went to some of the art teachers felt more comfortable, so they ended up in the art rooms. We're trying to even it out across the art classrooms in elementary so that it's equitable. And we're hoping that the person who was leading out in Southgate will be helpful in providing lesson plans and ideas to the other schools and how to use them.
No, I would say she really already has been. So that's Mary Beth Aldous. So she really took the lead among the elementary art teachers. So even doing some of the work with the innovation spaces. So she has been sharing that with her colleagues. So they're now ready to kind of take it on for next year. So she piloted them, looked at what projects work best with what grade levels, and has kind of refined that and been sharing that knowledge with that department. And has really been leading out on this front, which has been great to see.
That's great. Thank you.
I did have a question.
Oh,
It occurred to me, Mary. Sorry.
Turn.
No, well, I'll wait. This is more, do we have, and we don't need to go into this in detail now. Do we have a process in place for, I want to say this without it making it sound like I'm being judgmental. That is not my intent. Do we have a process in place for validating the request of a department? So, and I'm going to pick on the gym department because it's in my head. It's not personal. But if the gym class or the phys ed department comes and says, we need Chromebooks or iPads because we want to teach this app. That's great. But if that's going to cost us however many thousands of dollars to get, is there a judgment as to, or do we have a process in place to balance that against the art department, which may also want to have that and so on?
We do. It has multiple steps. So if teachers have certain requests, they go to their supervisors. Then supervisors, evaluate those requests. Then Julie meets with every supervisor, goes through the request, looks at what we have. Is it compatible? Will it work on our network? Looks at all those pieces. And then Julie kind of takes that list, kind of compiles it, prioritizes it. Then Julie meets with Scott and me and goes through the list, goes over everything. And all that comes out in what you see here tonight.
Okay. And do we have a way of balancing that? So let's say it is a choice between we're going to get this app or we're going to go out and buy 500 of this textbook because we need this text. But that would be a different department. Is there a way to balance that so that Julie's not stuck footing the bill every year? And so we come in here and she's asking for 200,000 more than last year, but it's because we're saving it somewhere else in the budget.
It is that's part of when it all comes to the central office team. We put all those pieces together and and look at that. And other than her getting the copiers this year, pretty much that is all a piece of it as we come together to bring the budget to you by April 3rd. That balances out all those priorities.
Usually that question comes up in the software, and so we'll get there, I'm sure.
It's a similar process.
Yeah, and you're gonna on the software, and I took out a slide just to try and shorten things up. But I usually show the previous year kind of software that we added. And one thing in looking at that list that we noticed is that certain things are now on my budget that makes it look like my budget grew, but really, for instance, iReady is math curriculum. So really it would have been in the math departments, but now it's just slid over onto mine. So our total budget didn't really it would have been in one place or the other. It's just now it's in my budget. So there's a lot of those items that have now kind of come to rest in software that used to be a paper textbook, but now are an online tool. So that kind of adds to our software growth.
Does that come out in the budget code somehow? I don't want to get into that tonight, but I would be interested in maybe discussing that down the road.
Yes, and I think as we, the next topic I think actually is the that's yes. So a couple things. For this year, we are about $139,000 more in software than last year. And truthfully, about 53,000 of that is really just an increase in the price of the software that we already have. That's really about a 3.4% increase, which if you think about inflation, it's not really that high, not that much. The rest of it is in this 86,000 of new software. But last year's increases, a lot of them honestly were things that were previously textbooks, but now software.
Okay.
And that is also too, I would say Julie does a great job of this, but one of the reasons we centralized it was for somebody like Julie and her team to have the ability to look at okay, who's actually using it just because we have it so that we can start to make decisions this one, which was the big deal 3 years ago is now really, and without somebody like Julie and her team looking at it, it's easy to just sort of keep those in the budget. So that's a big piece of what we do. You can see a little bit up for each year. We kind of go through and say, okay, this is no longer useful, or we have a different tool for that so that we're constantly monitoring the level of usage because obviously these things change very quickly.
And we're actually in process of looking at a couple more. There were some things we bought during the pandemic, like Seesaw, for instance, is kind of on the table. Are we really using that anymore? Can we take that one out? So before those final renewals go in, we will definitely have
gone over with a fine tooth comb everyone. I made the first pass already and we've started to do the second, but we get to a point where the instructional side needs to kind of step in and give their input, and that's where we are right now.
Okay.
So they're in the process of looking at those. We'll go back over already just on the first pass. We have a replacement for Mastercam that's going out. This is actually curriculum going in the opposite. They bought something different, and so now STEM Scopes is gone. This is a science from 6th grade. I'll just actually.
I was gonna say, I don't want to get ahead just in case other people have
Should
questions.
we ask it?
Right.
Yeah, we do have another question.
I was just curious with the 3D printers, does the price of that include material as well?
No, that's just the printer itself. The materials, I have another budget line for the materials. A lot of that actually comes from their own department stuff. The only exception I'll say is sometimes that when they first buy the printer, they'll usually go buy a bulk of material. I just bought one for one of the innovation spaces, and we bought them a bulk to start with, but then they'll be responsible later on for getting them. But you're right, it's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we continue?
Okay. All right. So Quill.org is a writing tool the high school has requested. It is a graphic novel kind of tool for grades 4 through 6. It allows you to pick like an avatar, and then in your story, that same character you can pick from, that guy riding a bike or reading a book. So it just helps to make that easier. You don't have to draw all of the pictures and really focus on the writing portion of the tab. Nearpod is a product we already own, but we have requests from ELL to add vocabulary. Vocabulary. It's a product that Nearpod actually bought. So we are willing to add that. Brain Pop is a product that we've been using for a long time, and we've also been using the ELL portion, but not for grades 9 to 12. So we're just adding grades 9 to 12 to our existing subscription. Lead Video is a tool we use to edit and create videos. Our kids have been using that for a long time. They bought out another company called Play Deposit, and I believe this is a replacement for Ed Puzzle. People are really looking forward to that tool. I highlighted this price in purple because it is going to go down. We had a little bit of a problem with quoting because NARIC does not have the Play Deposit portion in their contract yet. So we have to do some kind of jump through some hoops to be able to order that piece a la carte off to the side separate from there. So this is the list price. It's definitely going to go down. It constantly it's going to be significantly less, but I don't have that yet. Virtru is what's really used to encrypt email. So if we're sending confidential information on a student or even staff member, we can encrypt that email end to end. We have already 100 licenses. We're getting 100 more. I would foresee over the next couple of years, we might actually go to 800 to our teaching staff. Name Coach is something we found this year that we're kind of all really excited about. So many of you may have noticed people who have pronouns at the bottom in their email signature. Name Coach allows you to put your own voice pronouncing how your name should be read. And it also allows us to give the correct pronunciation and a phonetic spelling in Infinite Campus. So if you're a teacher and you're new to your class or you're expelled and you come in, you can ahead of time play that, hear it in the student's own voice, how they would like their name pronounced. And I think just will really make our students feel more comfortable. Quite honestly, at the meeting where we talked about this, funny enough, I would say more than 50% of the adults in the room had either a first name or last name, and I'll put myself in there as well, Scriven, that would be helped by having that on our email. So really looking forward to that and integrating it with Infinite Campus. The next two items are cybersecurity items. We actually had these on the budget last year, and we didn't fully because we were going to buy them through a near service, and then they weren't quite ready with their log aggregator, so we're still going to buy them. Definitely coming. So I just wanted to make note that that's still in there, that we didn't pull the trigger on this year. Precision exam site license is the licensing. It's a test for the DBE and DBP students to get credit for their class. It's in a way that New York is making them test. The last one is very similar, in fact, to something from Monday night. It's the Snap-on auto repair. So for any of you who are car gearheads and old, like me, you might have the old children's manual in your car. This is a database of like every car, automotive, children's manual, known to man, plus 2-cycle ones for like your lawnmower and any sort of other combustion engine. And it also has the same kind of codes that the code reader that the bus garage is looking for. For the code reader part, we're actually considering trying to get a license to whatever they end up getting there. So we maybe a purchase in conjunction with them, but we're working with them to decide what we're going to do. But definitely the part that is the Chilton manual part, it's not really Chilton manual, their own version of it. That part was so that is software in a nutshell. Edition. I'm going to stop here for a second just to make sure we put any questions on software.
Question. Yeah, Julie, are these like Name Coach, for instance? That's quite a bit of money. Is that a one-time purchase or is that an annual license?
It is unfortunately, but I believe we will be able to get it through there. So in the second it will have that much in there.
Okay.
We'll get feedback about it.
So it'll be $6,000 a year to help us learn how to pronounce each other's names.
I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but it's like $2 per student. Well, or $1 per student if it's
A child who is soft-spoken, who does not want to speak up, who finally says at the end of the year, my name has been pronounced wrong all year, or a parent who says that. When I think of things that are aligned with our goals to be an inclusive, welcoming, like there's nothing more important. And having been a teacher all those years, to repeatedly say to a child, wait, how do you say it? How do you say it? How do you say it? Because you're trying to do the best you can to pronounce it properly, but then that student feels like, oh, just say it however you want. And more often than not, that happens. So to give them the opportunity to be able to do that in a private space by recording it, and then the teachers having access to that so that they don't have to go through that and feel like, oh, yet again, I'm the one who everybody's looking at. I do think it is not inexpensive, but certainly a better product than some of the things that are out there on the internet where you can supposedly learn how to pronounce things and then we find out it's like when Google Translate isn't always perfect. Like, oh, it's good enough, but it's not really. And when you're talking about somebody's name and their identity, I do think I do think it's something that could be very helpful in our district.
Does every student have to like verbally say their name?
They would to do the recording of it. They don't have they don't have to. I mean, we wouldn't, we don't have to make anybody, but that's how it would get done. Yes.
So how do we like, is that an email sent out to all the students and the teachers, or how is that done?
It has a whole app, and the thing that I really like about this, there are some other ways you can do it, but when you have to do the other ways, you have to tell people like, go download Audacity and make a recording, then send it here, and we'll upload it for you. This makes it super easy. Basically, they would have an icon in class, and they click on it, and they go and type in their phonetic spelling, and they can hit the button to record their name, and then it automatically shows up on the record. I think the other thing that we really liked about this, when you're having an event like graduation, for instance, we do that for graduation anyway, to get the phonetic spelling and the pronunciation of everybody being correct. This does that for us ahead of time, so the all in there. Basically, you can say, okay, give me the entire senior class in an alphabetical order, and now they can click and hear whoever's doing the announcing can right there in the app click on the links for all the pronunciation and see the phonetic spelling there. And it's not just for that. I mean, you can use it in the elementary, speak of moving up ceremony. You can do any event where you're going to have to read a list of names of students that you might not know. I would really appreciated this when we figured out the Chromebooks for middle school for the first time, because I felt ridiculous in front of class. I looked at this list of names and I just felt so awful. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm gonna say this wrong. So I think it makes both ends of the transaction feel more comfortable, both the student and whoever's trying to read it. Because no one wants to mess it up.
Name's important.
Will this be done sort of before, like, will this be half before the school year when it starts, before students are even receiving their Chromebook?
We could very much, yes.
That kind of would be the 20th.
Yep,
First.
yeah, first day.
First aid,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's the area.
And then even going forward as new families register, so like right at registration, we can get that done. I think that's also, so it just builds, it builds into the base. The other thing I wanted to say regarding just the recordings and thinking of things like that, that I should have said earlier is the other reason for having it all kind of go through Julie is not just that we can get better pricing because we're buying more in bulk, if you will, and not just that, we can monitor what's being used, is we also have to be compliant with education law to make sure that we are meeting all the standards that New York State has for data privacy, for all those pieces. There's a lot of for-profit companies out there looking and they're advertising and they look really interesting and exciting. And there are many times, truthfully, where a teacher will go to a supervisor and say, hey, there's this really cool thing. And it's really cool. And then Julie's department gets it, they have to research it. And if it's not ed law compliant, we can't get it because we can't sacrifice student privacy, student data. So having it all go through here also helps because Julie's department knows that at a level that a supervisor or a building principal wouldn't know. And that has to be, of utmost importance to us that we protect security.
So I'll just add, every single software package that we purchase, we have to have a signed staff privacy agreement with them. And that process can take a day, or it can take 4 months, or it can end in that vendor ghosting us and never talking to us again. So we've experienced all of those, and we absolutely can't use a product unless we have that agreement in place. So
Where would the recording be stored? Locally or on the cloud?
in clouds, we would have to have a privacy agreement. One of the other benefits actually to purchasing software through Merrick is Merrick actually does that agreement for all schools together. So I don't have to negotiate that on my own. I think one of the biggest problems with NLI is as tech directors and as BPO, we really wish that the state for many of the commonly used apps would just negotiate one contract for all of us, but that hasn't happened. So they have done it with 12 free apps recently this year, and our local BOCEs have done it for a lot of them. All the ones that we purchased through there, they take care of that, and that it's really helpful because it can take a really long time. If they want any changes to our basic contract, we have to actually send it to our lawyers to approve it because honestly, the change of one word in the contract can change the liability amounts. And I'll just give you an example. We've had a district in the area that had to do an related data breach notification where basically anytime there's a breach in your student data exposed, you have to notify all of those students. And if it's a piece of software you've had for a really long time, it's because we have graduated, they can be long gone, and you can even prove that you've notified all of them. So one of the districts in the area told us they could cost them $300,000 to be their person. So if you really don't want, you want that responsibility to be on the vendor. If a breach happened there, we want them to pay the $300,000. We don't want to pay that, and that's really a big part of it.
We have a slide on existing software.
I don't have one. And mostly because there are 156 photos in the current one. And if I put it up here, no one would be able to read it.
Could we get an executive summary?
I to give you a summary or let you see it just seemed, if we found out in the past that it just was very cumbersome, so we just can't go through all.
I'm fine with that. I want to get an idea of how much we're talking about
Yes.
and where the big increases, if there were any. I know recently Google in the last couple of years, right? Google started charging us for.
So, yeah, I can actually tell you where the really big increases came from. One of them was Google, and I think we're gonna have a little bump again. Each year they decide they're gonna, license it in a different way. Truthfully, Google has never, ever been free. We've always paid some fee, to license the management console on our Chromebooks. It started off at like $24. It's now up to 32. So every Chromebook we buy, above and beyond the $312, we'll pay $32 to be able to manage it through this console. And then this year, the licensing for all of our students and staff was based on the count of computer using staff. Like it didn't count really like a transportation worker or custodian, but somebody who's really on a computer every day, which we have somewhere under 900 of that classification of people. And next year we just got a notification and they said, oh, this is great news. Now we're going to price it by students. This will be great for you. And, you know, you'll get one free staff for every 4 students and this and that. And when I finally did the math on all of it, that was a big impact last year. One other impact we're having is our antivirus, our next gen antivirus protection, which is CrowdStrike. We're excellent product, and we have, I don't want to go too much into it because we're on a live stream, but we have 24/7 monitoring, and the price of that is going up significantly. So it's necessary, we need it. It's not like I can say, oh, hey, let's just go without our antivirus. We really have to get it. We may look to use a different vendor for that 24/7 service to try and get back some money there. But those were the 2 big ones. The rest of it was really just that 3-4%, just a little bit here and there. Other than that, really none of them went up for them. Like,
Are there competitors to Google Classroom out there that are, or are we just kind of stuck paying whatever Google decides to make us pay? Okay.
We're too far down. It would be a very big lift to say, oh, you know what? Let's give everybody the low end Windows device and go full on Microsoft. I think we're so far down the professional development in the classroom and ties to all that would be very difficult.
Okay.
Don't ship. Possible, like if we get to a point where it's ridiculous, that may be an option, but
Do we have an idea of what that point would be? I'm assuming we're not close to it yet. Because
no,
just the-
no, it's not terrible. I think we pay, just to give you a ballpark, I believe it's about 32,000 for our Google licensing right now. So it's not ridiculously high yet. And I think this change might put us in the 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 6th range, but it's not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I say yes.
Yeah.
It could be because when it first came out, we kind of used the same tactic that Microsoft and some other vendors had used long ago. It's networking products. Come on in, the water's warm, really, come on. And we knew at some point they would start charging. Once they gathered their market share, then it could change.
Okay, any other questions before we move on?
Okay. Okay. Now we're on the chief topic. All right, network infrastructure. I'm trying to stay at a really high level. Important thing to note, this total at the bottom is really only about $16,000 more than the total last year. So we're right kind of in the ballpark of what we normally spend. This year in our replacement cycle, really all of this stuff is kind of, except for one thing, is really kind of replacement cycle thing. So we are replacing a number of switches. We're also replacing battery backups. The batteries, just like anything else, the batteries start to go and we replace them. So we have those on a replacement cycle. You'll notice I left it on here. There's a 0 by Wi-Fi access points this year because we pretty much, well, I can't say we put it all in because truthfully we ordered our last round of the Wi-Fi upgrade last July. Yeah. I'm hoping April break, but I am losing hope. Yeah, it might not be here till the summer. I think there's a kind of common theme in tech equipment. Randomly, some stuff comes and some other things we just wait months. There is a licensing and maintenance component of our Rural Wi-Fi that we do pay every year, so that part you will see, but there won't be any hardware in that line. One of the big purchases for this summer is a new pair of firewalls. We are upgrading that and purposely right now because next year is the first year that we're going to be required to do some of our state testing online. So it is becoming critically important to be that internet access dead on failing. So that's our firewalls. We have a little bit of fiber that we need to run new between some network closets. As always, we have servers that need to be replaced. We're going to buy a little bit of extra storage on our existing VM environment. It turns out thinking we need to buy a whole unit, but we have space to add to our existing, so we're doing that. The Wi-Fi hotspots are, if any of you have seen them with some of our students, they're the Jeeps. This is if you're a student and you don't have internet access at home, you can do this little hotspot with you, and you can get onto your phone. We also have to use them in a little emergency. We had at Southgate, we had a little hiccup with the fiber going to the building last week. And in order to get our emergency services back up, we actually grabbed a couple of those and brought them over, put one in the nurse's office, a couple at the main office, and we were able to get all of our main system back up and going so we can start the day. We have one phone system upgrade. This is not hardware, it's all software related. As always, we're constantly replacing patch cables. We have some we have some old Cat 5 ones, anywhere to see them, or replacing Cat 6. This lightning protection is something that came to light as we were putting in our cameras in the elementary school. These are for cameras that are on the outside of the building, so lightning protection for all of our external cameras. Then there are networking monitoring tools that are 1,400 and grand total of 570. Don't panic at that number, because we do get E-rate on that. And E-rate is one of those aids that technically should come back to us in the year that we're doing the purchase. If our E-rate purchases get approved early, like in July, sometimes we just pay the discounted rate and we only pay out of pocket the difference between the two. And if they're a little slow in their approval, but we want to make sure we get the equipment over the summer, we might buy it in whole, and then before the end of the year, that we'll miss that amount. So either way, that generally comes back to us in the year that it was purchased. The aid that doesn't is BOCE's aid that comes in the following year. Anything, there are some items that we're not allowed to purchase under the rates. And if it's an item like that, we need to try to purchase it with the 10 from there, and we get paid. It's pretty much the exact same percentage. And we just don't get that paid back until the following year. Any questions about that? Yeah. I did over there. Wait, thank you. Down to the easy ones. Yes. Okay. Non-public hardware. Okay, so this is the easy slide. This is hardware that technically we loan to the non-public schools in our area. The amount is really calculated by the state. It's based on the enrollment on Wednesday of the year before. It's been about this amount for the last several years. Even though we say we loaned it, we're never going to get back unless they go belly up. Belly up, we technically will get the equipment back, but we don't. Generally, we'll never see this again. It just goes to okay. IT, this is the only budget code that I'm calling out individually, fairly easy one to do, and it's been the same amount. I think it's the position before. It is equipment that is not aidable, so things that aren't directly in front of students or teachers. So this TV would be a good example. Since I'm not directly instructional, my laptop, several things like that. It's also used in the case of break fix. It's basically anything that costs over $1,000 we purchased in this code. I kind of like to call it the universal donor code because it can be used for anything. Generally, it's used for non-construction equipment. But if we need to use it on the equipment side, it can be used for that purpose. And again, it's the same amount. Yeah. Building security. All right, so during the building projects, the bond project, CSR did a survey. They determined where cameras should go in all of our buildings, but we were a little worried about how much we were spending and overruns. And so at some point, the cameras themselves were pulled out of the building project. Most of the wiring was done in the building, big building project. Cameras were not. Over this last year, we went ahead and bought those cameras and put them in place. I think it's actually to go back to build them in. And what we found, number one, first thing we found is that the lead time for the cameras is just adding that. I think we ordered them in July, and some of them also still on here with the external cameras. Well, we also found out that there were a lot of places where we really need cameras, but they weren't on the original plans. I think that the original plans from CSR, someone was working from a paper plan and maybe not necessarily walking every building. So we have locations where there's maybe like 150-year-old tree and the camera is slated to go behind it, and now really we need 2 cameras. So these amounts are some locations that desperately need cameras that seem to be overlooked on that first plan. So this is our first path, but I would anticipate, unfortunately, that I think every year we're going to have to purchase some cameras, to be honest. And it's going to be an iterative process. We're going to find locations where all of a sudden some vandalism creeps up, or little hidden corners that we didn't think about, or maybe some locations where we want a better camera, or, you know, on the side of the building, we have some 180-degree pans, and maybe we want a more focused camera looking out on a specific section, like maybe in the playground or somewhere, just to get a better view. And I think I would anticipate somewhere in the $50,000 range for years going forward after this. I think it's going to get less and less, but I do think there'll be a point where we kind of stagnated a certain amount that we're just adding every year and just replacing for cameras that break. Bad things happen. They're not cheap. So I do anticipate that. Something is smart school, which honestly, I don't have a lot to say about. We aren't planning to use any of that on money this year. We do have a little bit over $500,000 left. There are a couple for those of you who haven't been here before. These funds don't expire. We used a significant portion already. But what has happened is committee that approved those purchases has never met very often. It was always a long process. It was always at least a 9-month process, but now it's gotten worse. So, for example, the committee that approves them just met about 2 weeks ago. But the last meeting was last May, so 10 months before. So the process itself, even if you fast track one to get like our part of the process, there's like certain 30-day window. It takes at least 2 months. So we're talking at least a year ahead that you have to plan for these purchases. Sorry, we're ready for the roll of it. So I think thank you, Scott. One more for the end. One more for you. Yeah, thank you. So I think this might be a good place to say for a budget year where we're really struggling. We could use it for, we could also use it for some other things. There are some other categories that we don't have to share with our non-publics. We can use it for universal 3K classrooms. That's one of the categories. So it could be used there. It could be used for security cameras. And the reason we didn't use it is we knew there was a 6 to 9 month lead on the camera. If you add that to the year application time, I'm not getting the cameras for time. So I think it's one of those things we're gonna have to plan very far in advance. It's gonna have to be an item that we're okay if it doesn't get here.
Who's on that committee? What is that?
I do not know. And honestly, when I emailed I engineer, you know, address that you know, and last spring I was doing, I was updating my slides. And so I thought, well, I'll email them and see what their lead time is like. And I got this message back from them that said, no one's really monitoring this yet. So, you know, we'll get back to you eventually. And that was a year ago. They never ever got back to me. And then I called, there was a woman who used to work with me, who was fantastic, but she had moved on into another role. She did give me the phone numbers to call, and I wasn't able to get, you know, some more information, but I think it's never been well supported, and I think it's just gotten worse. And the money's still there, it's still always be available to us.
Well,
It's just, it may be difficult to get at, and we'll just have to be planned well in advance and be careful about what we do.
this is one that's not gonna go away.
They have promised it won't go away, so,
Whoever they.
yeah.
Yeah, but you can see it, you can see how, you know, most schools have used this money. There's the activity will slow down and the committee will meet less and less, and eventually maybe they're, you know.
It was never very, I have to say, it was never very good, even in the pandemic. The pandemic, we had so many schools that didn't have enough Chromebooks. We were lucky to get enough Chromebooks that we could go K through 12. There were a lot of schools who definitely did not. And we're like, we don't have the money. We just have to get something where we want to use our smart school money. Yes, don't worry, we'll do this expedited process. But those schools still didn't get there. And the other thing I have to know is that you cannot make the purchase until the project is approved. So you cannot send a penny. Unlike E-rate, you have to wait until it's done. So these schools did not get their Chromebooks until like January or February of the following year. They started that whole first year, that whole first fall without the Chromebooks. So you know, it cannot be, that's the process. But I will say it was money, extra money, so whatever hoops we need to go through, we'll go through. I think that is really good.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
And should I have my-
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. You can see why Julie gets her own night, not because she talks too long, but because she has a massive department that touches like every area of this school district, from instruction to security and pretty much everything in between. So thank you for that. That was really comprehensive. Next Monday is our monthly board meeting that will be at Bout Hills, and so we come back again on the 29th. 29th is staffing, anticipated building enrollment, as well as any new projects and initiatives. So that's our last big night of new information before we hit April 3rd, where we review everything so that the board can adopt the budget. DJ, are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Scales or Ms. Nardolo, the 29th is at the middle school. Is that correct?
So we had made the plan to move to the middle school, and then our amazing team here rearranged the room. So we do have more seating, and this is an easier space for us to live stream from. It's easier for people at home to hear than it is in that big middle school auditorium. So now that we have more seating capacity, we were just discussing before this meeting that we would potentially keep the March 29th meeting here for those reasons. For the people who are watching at home, it makes it much easier for them to see, hear everybody, and that is a big night. But we will certainly let people know. But
So unless we hear otherwise, it's here?
it's here.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you.
Okay. Before we close, can I just say one thing? I think we have a new student here
We do.
as our budget person. So I'd like to say hello and welcome and thank you so much for coming. We're happy to have you. And we hope you're here for the next 4 years.
I'm Lydia, by the way.
What's that? Olivia, yes. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, you're in 9th grade, right? So you'll be around.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we appreciate you being here. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, well, thank you, Julie, thank you for the world, thank you. You know, and I'll take a motion to leave on a budget committee meeting and adjourn.
To do that.
Take a second on it. All in favor?
Honored.